Hello, listeners. It's Mallory Willsea, Chief Producer of the Enrollify Network, and I want to take just a moment to tell you about another show on Enrollify that I know you'll love. Mastering the Next is a cutting-edge podcast exploring the future of graduate, online, and non-traditional education through the lens of technology and artificial intelligence. Staying competitive in the world of graduate student recruitment and enrollment means keeping up with the ever-evolving tech trends in higher ed. Join Dr. Ray Lutsky, VP of Strategic Partnerships at Element 451, as he explores what's next at the dynamic intersection of student recruitment and leading-edge technology. Each episode will explore future trends and the technology shaping the academic landscape of the 21st century. Listeners will be equipped with strategies to meet the evolving needs of today's online and non-traditional learners. New episodes drop every other Friday, and you can subscribe to the show by visiting podcast.enrollify.org or just search Mastering the Next wherever you get your podcasts.
I genuinely deeply care about a lot of folks in this space. I've made a lot of deep real life friends here. And so I think it's important to slow down and talk about it and make space to discuss how we're doing and what are the things we're doing to try to survive and thrive and navigate kind of the increasingly choppy waters we're in. And so I'm excited for today's conversation.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to Higher Ed Pulse, your Monday morning energizer covering insights and trends in higher ed marketing and enrollment. I'm Mallory Willsea, bringing over 15 years of edtech and marketing expertise to your earbuds.
And I'm Seth Odell, joining the Pulse with my own adventures from leading marketing at top universities to founding Kanahoma, one of the industry's fastest growing digital marketing agencies.
Each week, we bring you the kind of insider insights you typically only find over cocktails with your pals at a conference.
It's fast, it's fun, and it's designed for you, the busy higher ed professional.
You're not just listening to another podcast.
You're checking the pulse of higher education.
Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher ed professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com. All right, and we are back for the next episode of Higher Ed Pulse. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome back to my favorite Seth Odell. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Mallory. As always, it is great to see you.
Gosh, are you ever going to say it's not great to see me?
As soon as it's not great, I'll let you know. Immediately, I'm going to let you know. But so far, so good. You're batting 1,000.
All right, sweet. Well, we're 16 episodes in now, so I feel like we've crossed that line.
Sweet 16.
Sweet 16. Oh, I love it. So listeners know that last week we kept going with our kind of mini series around examining different types of institutions within higher ed. And our focus last week was on grad schools. And one of the points that came up during our conversation was that a lot of these enrollment management and marketing professionals are feeling really burnt out because of the pressures they're facing, the resource constraints. Grad programs are really having to pick up and carry a lot of the weight when the undergrad program doesn't hit its enrollment numbers, right? Everyone looks to grad schools as the silver bullet.
Yeah.
So these individuals are feeling more and more burnt out. And that kind of led us to saying hey, let's take a pulse check. See what I did there?
That was good.
Let's take a little pulse check on how we're feeling. Is this something that's happening for all of our colleagues in higher ed? We're now in a post-May 1st world, but the FAFSA fiasco is still raging. And, for many of us, it may be coming off the road from spring travel or a conference season. We're heading into summer, but it just doesn't feel like summer vibes yet. I don't know, Seth. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think that's a very real thing. The burnout conversation is all too real. I think we all talk about it. It does feel like it's rising. Some of it feels like it's societal in general, but a whole lot of it does feel like higher ed. We're in a crowded, complex, mature, and consolidating market. I always tell people If you're a marketer in higher ed, enjoy today because it's only going to get harder from here. Like it's just harder and harder every day. And so I think unfortunately that's adding up. There's a lot of pressure on folks. And so, this whole conversation on burnout is real. I think we see people leave the industry. We see people, leaving institutions, jobs, those things. But, I think like wellness is like super important. I like genuinely deeply care about a lot of folks in this space. I've made like a lot of like deep real life friends here. And so like, I think it's like important to slow down and talk about it and like make space to discuss how we're doing and what are the things we're doing to try to like survive and thrive and navigate kind of the increasingly choppy waters we're in. And so I'm excited for today's conversation.
Yeah, we're going to talk self-care today. So it'll be a little bit of a different episode because we're just going to be chit-chatting about this topic. And Seth, maybe to kick us off, I know you've been on a couple trips lately. You mentioned your Joshua Tree retreat a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
And I know you took a trip to Paris recently too. So how are you, are you feeling rejuvenated after these things or just like more stressed out because your inbox is, ballooning?
I'm actually mostly feeling rejuvenated. It is hard coming back from those things, and that's very real. I did just go to Paris for a little over a week, which was amazing. It was a bucket list item for my wife, Lauren, and this is the first time we've taken a week-long destination trip ever in our relationship, and it's the first time I took more than a week off from a job since 2014. So it's been over 10 years since I took this kind of time off, which is really like not okay and unfortunate and a mess. But I'm like pushing myself really hard to do it. So that's been really good. Paris was really great. Really tried to not check my email all that much and Slack all that much. But we'll get into a few tips and tricks today. But like some of it's you got to create rules for yourself and know your weaknesses. Like I got to like literally like silence. I don't have any notifications anymore on email and Slack. I used to have those on my phone all the time. I turn all that off. I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb 24 hours a day. It's been on Do Not Disturb 24 hours a day for like 2 years. And it's like, that's the way I got to live my life now. And like, we got to do all we can in all aspects. So I am doing better, far from great, but every day a little bit better. That's the best that I can do.
Nice. Yeah, April was just kind of a crazy month. And I mean, it was lovely because I got to see you in real life, but you throw a couple conferences in and like for me, we had some staff shakeups on the Enrollify side. And I myself just got back from a trip. I went to Vegas primarily to see Justin Timberlake's new tour. Don't come at me.
Okay.
Just absolutely incredible performer, and his new album is insane, and I'll be doing it again in October. It's fine.
Good for you.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, that was self-care, right? Like that was like, I too turn off the notifications, take Slack off the phone. It's really hard. And this is a me thing, but like, even when I'm not feeling well, and I think it's because we're in such a remote world and the laptop is always there. And so even if you're not feeling well, it's not like you're taking a day off. You're just maybe not on camera that day. I actually experienced that recently too. And I have to say, I had some very intense feelings of guilt that day because I had to reschedule some meetings. I couldn't show up 110%. And at one moment, I just stepped back and I was like, why am I feeling so guilty? If I had a team member come to me and say, I'm sick, I would say like, take the day off, right? Like, and have no negative feelings towards that whatsoever. So why can't I give myself that grace?
Right.
I don't know. I bet we have listeners who this is going to resonate
No,
with.
totally. And I think like that, the idea of like self-care and like prioritizing yourself like that is like super important. I think your point is really interesting on that guilt. I think guilt is a huge reason why people don't take the time to express like their needs and act on them. We at Kanahoma, we have unlimited PTO. And one of the things we talk about is like, unlimited PTO is supposed to be good in the sense that like, you take a few weeks vacation, you get invited to a wedding, go take it. Like you shouldn't feel like, I have to count my hours. But like most of the time when it's implemented, it's just totally a scam. And like unlimited PTO is designed to get people to never take time. And like we hate that. And so we had to implement like mandatory minimums. So it's like, like it's unlimited PTO, but like you have to take at least 2 weeks a year at a minimum because it's like people weren't. And it was like, we're going to get rid of the benefit. We were like, we're going to implement accrued time if you need it because we got to figure out how to solve this guilt thing. And I think that's got to be demonstrated constantly, communicated constantly. It's just a real thing. In addition to guilt, part of it too is even just being self-aware of how you're feeling. I was at that retreat in Joshua Tree, which was really, really wonderful. I was put on by this group, Hamptons, kind of like a YPO group. We did, Zazen meditation and holotropic breath work. We did this nature solo stuff into Joshua Tree. We went into the desert for 5 hours and we couldn't leave a 10-foot by 10-foot space, no phone, no way to tell time. It was wild. But one of the things they talked about, Peter, the facilitator, was like, he gave us time to reflect on what are your limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs are like a belief that you have that is limiting your behavior and opportunity to grow as an individual. And mine was, I realized was that like, if I express my needs and my feelings, those I love will leave me. And that's just like, like a personal thing to figure out that like, if I express how I feel and what I need, people are going to like leave me and abandon me. And, we all have childhood trauma or issues that cause those things. But just seeing and being able to be aware of those things is important because like, in addition to guilt, like for me, it's this idea of like, oh, if I express this need, people won't be there for me, which is like, that's a rough way to live life, is worrying that like, relationships are contingent on contribution, not just on the value that each of us bring. And so not solved, but like, it was a great question. Like what is a limiting belief that holds you back? It was a really, it was an interesting one that came up and it was really insightful for me.
Hey, it's Mallory. Exciting news! I'm hosting the Engage Summit in Raleigh on June 25th and 26th, and I'd love to meet you there. Together, we'll dive into the mind of the modern student, what fires them up, how they interact, and what they expect in today's digital age, and how tools like AI help put them in the driver's seat of their education. We have some terrific speakers, including our closing keynote, New York Times best-selling author Jeff Selingo. Sessions will dig into practical ideas and innovative strategies to get your team more student-centered and ready to adopt AI. And many of your favorite Enrollify hosts are presenting too, like Jamie Hunt, Jenny Lee Fowler, and Brian Gross. Use the discount code Enrollify50 for an extra $50 off your registration. Learn more and register at engage.element451.com. We can't wait to see you there. I feel like that first step of awareness is such a critical step. For me, I'm an Enneagram 3. And so I've done a lot of research into the Enneagram numbers and implemented them team-wide at a previous job. And something that is like a tenet for us 3s is that we derive our personal value based off of our accomplishments. And we don't have, I do not have the ability to separate my self-worth apart from the things that I accomplish professionally in my life. So
that's so interesting.
And it sucks. Honestly, yeah. I wish it wasn't that way, because if I'm not portraying the 110% version of myself all of the time, and that's, how I show up with my appearance. That's how I show up in terms of achieving goals ahead of schedule, right? Am I giving off that confident vibe, right? There's so many different, we could analyze this for days, but there are so many things that go into what I look at in terms of what is an accomplishment. And if I fail, I actually feel my value as a human takes a hit. It's terrible.
I mean, that's awful. But I really thank you for sharing that. Because one thing you just made me think of, I've never thought about this. It's not in my notes for this episode or anything, was I have in my past thought about how intertwined my personal identity is with my professional identity. They're not separate. They're one thing, right? And I've been in this industry for almost 20 years. It's a huge part of who I am. I love this. I have very real friends like you who are I guess we're technically professional friends, but we're so past that. We go to weddings together. We're real friends. But then it's my identity is tied up in those things professionally, meaning that I'm then reliant on those achievements professionally to feel really good, because I haven't maybe created the space personally to have those achievements. I don't maybe have as many hobbies, especially now having a kid. I have a 3-year-old. It's my life is very much like work or fatherhood. And so where am I creating those opportunities to self-identify in ways that are so far outside of work? And so it's I am almost relying on work now to play a role that maybe historically it hasn't played. So it's just really interesting to think through that, disentangling personal and professional identity is critical. I don't know how you do it, but just thinking about what you shared, it's really interesting that maybe I'm in the same boat, and that I am so reliant on these professional accomplishments because I haven't created space to have maybe the comparable personal ones.
Well, I know that you love music and that you are a musician. Where has that fallen into your adulthood?
Oh, you're like stabbing me in the heart, Mallory. This is like so interesting you brought this up. So I have not picked up my guitar in a couple of years, like at all. My amp is right here in the background. Like I barely play it, but like I'm turning 40 this summer, and like I've been working on like a new vision board. So I have a vision board. I'm a big believer in manifestation. I put one together when I first founded Kanahoma, and it's like crazy. Like 2/3 of it has like come true. Like I do believe in this. And I was telling Lauren, my wife, that I'm going to do a new one for 40, and I'm going to do a bucket list for 40, but none of it's going to be professional because one of my aspirations is to like put out another music recording. I've played in several bands. I used to like tour around the Northeast a little bit when I was like 18, 19, 20. And I was like, I want to write music again and put it out. And like, I want to create something that has no monetary value and has no benefit to me professionally, purely for the satisfaction of it. So it's both a sad answer and a happy answer. Sad answer is I've done nothing with music. But the happy answer is like, you hit the nail on the head of an issue for me of like self-reflecting on those things that brought me joy in the past. And like, I am going to make space for that moving forward. I'm like very, very committed to that.
The real ones will remember you and I recorded the hit.
Oh my gosh. What was it? Okay. This is like, it was in Manchester, right? Okay.
It was. I used to visit Seth when he lived in Manchester, New Hampshire, because he lived very close to the airport. And I would fly out of that airport to go to Chicago when I was working for M. Stoner. And there was one night that we were in the middle of like a higher ed Secret Santa situation. I drew our good friend Joel Goodman's name that year. And after I think maybe a couple glasses of wine, the idea was born for writing Joel a song, who is also a lover of music. And I could still sing it. I won't sing it on the podcast, but I could still say, these are my internet friends working in higher ed. We're IRLs until the end.
Oh my gosh. I literally forgot. You have like dusted off a filing shelf way back there. And that is an amazing memory to remember. That is so fantastic.
It's a good thing that YouTube video is probably marked as private because nobody needs to see that.
Oh, that's so good, though. That's so good. Wow.
So I think maybe on your 40 bucket list, we need to
let's do it again. I'm ready.
Updated recording.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, it's so interesting. I think that like we need to make time. This came up in my retreat in Joshua Tree too, like making time for play and the ability to play from a childhood innocence perspective, which obviously innocence is lost at varying levels for different people based on their lived experience, but this like just sense of play. And so like I work with a coach, like I have like a business professional personal coach guy, and one of the things he challenged me to do recently was come up with a business idea that's nothing to do with education, because I like business, and it was like, come up with a business idea, pitch it to me, and then throw it in the garbage and never do it again. And so I came up with this idea for a kids DJ business, but it was a business of like, a DJ for like 5-year-olds' birthday parties, and like it's like kids DJ, like this whole thing. And I did this whole thing, and then he's like, great. I presented it to him, and he's like, great, now throw it in the garbage. And I was like, what? And he's like, because it's play. He's like, there's no expectation. And it was like awesome. It was a really good exercise to like remember that the art of play is like a really liberating thing. And I think we all need a little bit more of that in our lives.
I love that, Seth. And I have certainly experienced in my life, even just day to day, it's when I finally let my brain be maybe a little more creative or rest or enter that play mode. Surprisingly, that's when some of the best professional ideas like come to light, right? Like, why is it when we're in the shower about to fall asleep that all of a sudden our brain starts buzzing and we need to write down these brilliant ideas? It's because we're not forcing it. It's the moments of play that I think, kind of foster that creative spark as well. So there's certainly benefits here, and it's all connected. I talk to my team a lot about work-life integration, not work-life balance, because especially on a distributed team, like if you got to go to a doctor's appointment or you're working from the hair salon on a Tuesday afternoon, like who cares, right? Like in a performance-based culture, we should be able to construct our days and our lives around when we are fresh, when we work best. At the end of the day, it's about doing the best work and getting it done and not punching in and out on 9 to 5. And so if I can leave listeners with a wish, it is that we can all take better care of ourselves going into this next academic season and find the moments for play, but also the moments when we are at our best and make work fit into that, not the other way around.
I love that. And I would just add that I think when we talk about burnout and wellness, sometimes we think about tips and tricks and it's like how to better manage your inbox or what's the latest book to read. And I just don't believe that that's really the nature of these conversations anymore. I went to a previous retreat last year and I went into it really thinking I had to fix myself. And I was like, here's all the things wrong with me. And I left that retreat realizing that it wasn't about fixing myself. It was about accepting myself and loving myself exactly as I am, and like understanding that I am whole and complete exactly as I am. And Peter, the facilitator, asked me that over dinner. He said, when are you going to realize that you're whole and complete exactly as you are? I believe that. Do you? And I do now, and I didn't before. And so I would say for everybody listening here, like bear with me for 2 seconds, but like you're whole and complete exactly as you are. And like I believe that, and like I love you all, and like Mallory, I love you. And like I think it's not about fixing. I think it's about accepting and about celebrating. That may not solve for all of it, but that's at least where my head's at and my heart is at when it comes to the conversation of burnout and wellness these days.
What a wonderful message to end on, Seth. I love you too. It's just like been such a fun little episode. Hopefully, if folks are feeling burnt out, this has just been a nice respite in their morning.
Agreed.
Wonderful. Well, friends, I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope you take care of yourself. And we will see you back here in your earbuds next Monday for The Pulse. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.